Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. General Hospital spoilers. Brennan behind Sasha's rigged DNA results WSB lab test can't be trusted. General Hospital, GH, spoilers reveal that Sasha Gilmore Corbin, Sophia Matson, didn't want to believe Holly Sutton's, Emma Sam's, claims about her paternity, and the fact that Cody Bell, Josh Kelly, was her first cousin. And neither did Cody when Sasha came clean. However, Robert Scorpio, Tristan Rogers, sent the samples off to a secure WSB lab so that there'd be no possibility of tampering. That's why Robert, Sasha, and Cody ultimately accepted the DNA results were the real deal. Of course, we have to acknowledge that the WSB is capable of some pretty shady moves. Just look at how Brennan's criminal charges were erased for his prison release, and this fresh start running Port Charles WSB division. Should everyone really be so quick to trust this supposedly secure WSB lab? Maybe it's a bad idea to hinge the veracity of Holly's story on what these WSB lab results confirmed. We should point out that when Robert set this paternity test in motion, he called Brennan for a favor. What if Brennan is in cahoots with Holly somehow, or is being blackmailed in some way? There's a chance that Brennan made sure those DNA results confirmed Robert was Sasha's bio dad. Brennan is a sneaky character who always has some hidden agenda, so it's certainly possible he pulled some strings in the lab to make that happen. Holly might have had some sort of leverage to force Brennan's hand. Then again, it'd be a great twist if Brennan turned out to be Sasha's father instead, so maybe he covered it up thinking Robert would be a better dad for her. Brennan didn't seem to recognize Holly when they first met, but maybe they actually had a fling many years ago. It's also possible Sasha's father is someone else entirely. The point is that just because these DNA results came from a WSB lab, that doesn't mean they're trustworthy, particularly since Brennan was involved. Do you think Sasha's paternity will eventually be changed? Could there be hope for Sasha and Cody's romance after all? Port Charles was buzzing, and not in a good way. Sasha Gilmore was reeling after recent DNA test results had upended her life. As far as she knew, her family background had always been straightforward, but a new test conducted by the World Security Bureau, WSB, threw her whole history into question. The revelation threatened everything she held dear, and she had just started to suspect that the WSB's lab work might be compromised. And when Brennan, a man with no shortage of dangerous secrets, began looming in her periphery, Sasha couldn't shake the suspicion that her newfound truth was anything but real. Sasha's story had been complicated from the start. Between her tangled relationship with Nina Reeves and her history of posing as Nina's daughter, she'd faced her share of identity crises. But this new twist felt different. When the WSB lab test showed a wildly unexpected outcome, one that placed her origins in question yet again, Sasha was devastated. It wasn't long before she noticed Brennan's presence creeping into the scene. Brennan, an enigmatic figure whose shadow fell over many in Port Charles, had close ties to the WSB. He'd always kept a watchful eye on Sasha, albeit from a distance. Recently, however, Sasha couldn't escape him. He seemed to be everywhere she turned. Whether it was an uncanny coincidence at General Hospital or catching a glimpse of him on the docks, Brennan's presence was haunting. Maxi Jones, Sasha's closest confidant and rock, could sense her friend's distress from miles away. Over lots of Kelly's, Sasha poured her heart out. Maxi, the DNA results don't make sense. There was no reason to question them until they told me I had no living relatives anywhere, not even cousins. Her hands trembled as she spoke. Maxi's brow furrowed. Sasha, this sounds like something out of one of Peter's twisted plans. You really think someone rigged the WSB results? don't know, Maxi, but I can't ignore the feeling in my gut. Brennan has something to do with this. I just know it." Together, the two women decided to dive deeper. They knew getting access to the WSB lab files would be risky, but Maxi had connections in the WSB through Mac and Anna, both of whom had access to some information on their databases. Maxi put in a discreet call to Anna, carefully downplaying Sasha's fears, but highlighting the mistake in the DNA results. Anna's curiosity was piqued. She'd seen her share of WSB interference, and she agreed to investigate further, subtly, without drawing attention. Days later, Anna returned with unsettling news. The DNA results for Sasha had indeed gone through unusual handling. The test, originally requested by a private party, had been transferred to the WSB's lab for further verification after a mysterious flag appeared on her file. That alone wasn't cause for concern, but the fact that Brennan was listed as the test's point of contact raised red flags. Why would someone like Brennan be involved in something so personal to Sasha? Sasha's suspicions turned into cold certainty. Brennan wasn't just an observer. He was a puppeteer, pulling strings from behind the scenes. If he had meddled with her DNA results, there had to be a reason, a motive powerful enough to justify his interference. She needed answers, and only one person had the leverage to confront Brennan directly. That person was Jason Morgan. Sasha knew Jason's methods could be a little intense, but she was beyond playing it safe. Sasha went to Jason, laying out her theories, and asked him to help her confront Brennan. Jason was reluctant, but eventually agreed. With his stone-cold demeanor, Jason called Brennan and arranged a meeting under the pretense of discussing WSB involvement in Port Charles. The location Jason picked was the docks, where shadows stretched long and words could be swallowed by the lapping water. When Brennan arrived, he looked both smug and wary. He had a knack for sensing danger, but he hadn't expected Sasha to be part of the confrontation. Jason spoke first, his tone icy. "We know about the DNA results, Brennan. Care to explain how your fingerprints ended up all over Sasha's file?" Brennan sneered. "You think you're onto something, but this isn't your world, Jason. The WSB has its own priorities, its own rules." He turned to Sasha, his gaze oddly warm yet condescending. "Sasha, you're chasing shadows. Your family background isn't important. What matters is the person you are now." The response did little to reassure Sasha. She felt sick to her stomach, knowing that her whole identity could be manipulated so effortlessly. She took a step forward, her voice steady but full of defiance. "You don't get to decide that, Brennan. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you had no right to mess with my life like this." Brennan's mask cracked slightly, just enough for a hint of sympathy to slip through. "Sasha, there's so much you don't know. This isn't about you, it's about something much larger. The WSB and its operatives are tasked with handling certain sensitivities. Your results are part of that. Leave it alone for your own good." Before she could protest, Brennan left, leaving Sasha and Jason more bewildered than before. After the meeting, Sasha and Jason regrouped with Anna, desperate for some insight. Anna, though seasoned with the WSB's secrets, was equally troubled. If the WSB's labs couldn't be trusted, how many other lives had been tampered with? She promised to dig deeper, to find the link between Sasha's file and the WSB's hidden motives. Back at the Metro Court, Sasha tried to keep her cool, but Maxi could tell she was barely holding it together. Maxi reached out, squeezing Sasha's hand. "This isn't over, Sasha. Brennan may have some influence, but he's not invincible. We're going to get to the bottom of this." Sasha nodded, a new determination hardening in her gaze. If the WSB wanted me to ignore this, they're going to be disappointed. I deserve to know the truth. As the days went on, the stakes grew higher. Anna's investigation uncovered whispers of a covert operation tied to a high-profile family with connections to the WSB, a family whose secrets had been buried for decades. Sasha wasn't just an ordinary case. She was part of something deeper, a piece of history that someone wanted to remain hidden. But the truth has a way of surfacing, even when powerful people try to keep it buried. For Sasha, that truth was her birthright. And as long as Brennan continued to manipulate and obscure the facts, she would continue fighting. With Jason, Maxi, and Anna by her side, Sasha was ready to challenge the system, face Brennan head-on, and take back her story, no matter how dangerous the journey might become.